Where is blockchain saving companies the most money?
The value proposition is cross-border payments, but the payment is the cheapest part of an enterprise procurement cycle. The long-term future is the entire economic stack, not just the payment.
What will enterprises genuinely laugh at in terms of what they were missing out on?
If you want to know where the future of finance is, or any of these other things, look at what consumers are doing today.
Which region right now do you think is furthest along the way of getting there?
Oh, the US. If you look at where large companies are investing, it is overwhelmingly the US. They just went way more aggressively.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's Tech It or Leave It episode. I'm here with Paul Brody, global blockchain leader at EY. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I am Paul Brody, and I have a night job, which is I am chairman of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance.
Fantastic, awesome. So, busy week, a lot of talks, a lot of interesting time in the market that we're in right now. I'm very interested in your vantage point based on what you're seeing from the outside. Enterprises are adopting blockchain. They like blockchain in theory, and they're adopting it more and more. I want to know, in your experience, what is still scaring some of them away? What is that reserve that is holding a lot of the bigger enterprises back from truly embracing blockchain and crypto?
I don't think there is a lot left. So we did a survey at the end of last year. EY and Coinbase did this survey. We talked to 270 companies. The numbers are like bananas. 54% said they plan to start using stablecoins by the end of 2026. 54%. That's up from about 8% today. So that's an incredible ramp. And they also told us what their chief use cases are, which are overwhelmingly cross-border payments and both sending and receiving to their suppliers, tokenized assets, and managing their business relationships. So it's heavily driven by stablecoins and tokenized assets. And the main issue, it's not a hesitancy, but the main characteristic that everybody has to keep in mind is that when you're a large enterprise, you've got to be scrupulously careful about following the rules, which means that you have to think about your stablecoin adoption and deployment from the standpoint of country A to country B, where it is legal in country A and in country B.
Okay, awesome. In your opinion, regulation and where regulation is today and how it has shifted in the last year, has it helped or slowed down adoption in your opinion?
It has been enormously helpful in accelerating things. I think, I spent many years in this space and I often got frustrated because I would tell clients, for this use case that you want to do, you don't need the SEC's approval. And they're like, it doesn't matter. We're very conservative. Big businesses need a very clear playbook and they need to be told, here are the rules. And this ecosystem generally has rules. And it has been remarkable, the flood of adoption that took place the moment the Genius Act passed. Even before, as people saw it was definitely going to happen, we saw our demand for our services and preparing for this just take off like a rocket.
Before and after, major before and after. Okay, amazing. I have a question. So enterprises, what use case are they asking about the most but deploy the least in your experience?
So everybody's asking about cross-border and they're deploying cross-border. They're also asking about payroll, but they're not yet deploying payroll. So that's of all the different use cases that we found, payroll had the lowest expectation of adoption. I personally think payroll is going to be, in the long run, the most transformational part of adoption because it's going to shift people's money from moving monthly or weekly to daily. I think in the future, most people are going to get paid, especially on gig work and piecework. We're heading towards a world of daily pay, and we're also heading towards a world of daily payment for phone, mortgage, electricity. Now that the cost of making the payment is coming down towards zero, the idea that you're going to give somebody 30 days or 60 days of credit, and you're going to need to float all that working capital of your operation is going to seem obsolete.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting.
Well, I call this idea streaming money, because we're just like streaming music, we're going to move it when and how we need it. And it's going to be kind of continuous flow rather than big chunks.
That's fascinating. And you think, what is this, a 2026, 2027? Like, what's your opinion on like how quickly we're getting to that point?
Where we are now is we are in the phase that now I came from the world of IBM and I came from the tech world, and outsourcing, we would always have this phrase like your mess for less, right? So right now we are in the your mess for less phase, which is whatever your messy process is for handling money and managing it around the world. When you move it to stablecoins, you can do it faster and cheaper. The next phase, and I think really where we're headed for streaming is like a 2028, 29 thing. But once people can move money almost for free and instantaneously, first they're going to do that and like, oh, I saved a bunch of money. But then they're going to be like, wait a minute, I can completely transform my payroll, working capital, business operations, everything. And you have to do your mess for less before you can do, wait, I don't want to have the mess anymore.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. This is a two-part question. Today, where is blockchain saving companies the most money in terms of the ones that have adopted blockchain? And where do you think it will save them the most money as we move towards the next phase of adoption?
This is a great question for which I actually have spent a lot of time thinking about this. Right now, the value proposition is cross-border payments, because a cross-border payment today takes like days and costs dollars, like $30 to $50. So you're taking something that takes 3 days and costs like $40, and you're turning it into something that takes 1 second and costs a penny. So you're saving all that money. But here's the amazing thing. The payment is the cheapest part of an enterprise procurement cycle. Purchase order, contract negotiation, invoice presentation, all of those cost way more money. And about 5 years ago, EY built a system from Microsoft with the Xbox video game contract management system. And we took all of these paper contracts that had a semi-automated system for reconciliation, and we put them on a private Ethereum blockchain, and we turned them into smart contracts. When we did that, we took the cycle time required to administer a contract from 45 days to 6 minutes, and we took the overall cost down by 50%.
That's insane.
So, and the whole cycle, the average cycle cost is $400.
Okay.
So right now, for a cross-border payment, I save $40. And for a domestic payment, I save almost nothing to go to blockchain.
Yeah.
But if I do the whole contract cycle, now I'm saving $200 every single time.
That's insane. That's an insane figure.
The long-term future is the entire economic stack, not just the payment.
And this is not hoping, this is going to happen in your opinion.
I believe it's going to happen, right? Because blockchain does something that we haven't been able to do in the past. Historically, contracting, goods receipt, or like exchange of product and money have all happened in completely different systems. Now on chain, I have tokens that represent the products, I have tokens that represent the money, and I can write smart contracts. So I can take this thing that used to exist in 3 different silos and bring it into a single ecosystem. Sure. And once you can see the savings from that, it's going to be very compelling. Right? Exactly.
Okay. All right. Last question from me. Today, fast forward like 5 years from now, what will enterprises genuinely like laugh at in terms of what they were missing out on, say 2 years ago, 2024, or even today? Today, fast forward 5 years, what's going to be laughable in terms of, oh, that was such an archaic way of functioning?
The whole contracting system, international payments, right? 5 years from now, and people need to keep in mind, enterprises move much more slowly than consumers do or that technology does. This is the 10th anniversary of EY blockchain. We've literally been around for 10 years. And they asked me, like, write an article for our internal website at EY, like, what have you learned in 10 years? And then one of the number one things I've learned is that everything takes way longer than you think it will. And one of the things I realized is like Ethereum, stablecoins, smart contracts, these were all around 10 years ago. So the reality is, and people are crazy about agentic commerce right now, the reality is 5 years from now, we will be massively scaling very traditional things in a way that makes them much cheaper. And we'll be still talking about how long is it going to take to really adopt agentic commerce in the enterprise. So people will be disappointed by how long this stuff takes. So 5 years from now, we will be massively scaling and looking back on some of the old ways of traditional stuff and be like, wow, we could do so much better. But we won't yet be into what is truly next, which is the agent-based model.
Okay. And then just quick follow-up on that one. Which region right now do you think is like furthest along the way of getting there at the moment?
Oh, the US. Well, I mean, if I go look at ours, it's very interesting, and I have this conversation a lot inside of UI. If you look at where the world's like blockchain validators are, like if you were to go do a geography of Ethereum, it's actually pretty evenly distributed. US, Americas, Europe, Asia. But if you look at where large companies are investing, it is overwhelmingly the US. Like the takeoff we have seen in the US has been much steeper than the takeoff we've seen in Europe or Asia, even though, and this is really interesting, it's a great contrast, the EU MiCA, the Markets in Crypto Assets legislation, is comparable to the Genius Act and was around 2 years before the Genius Act. My main takeaway is that there is a very substantial difference in the appetite for risk and the competitive intensity in the US market. And so once US banks and financial institutions got the green light, they just went way more aggressively.
Awesome. Is there anything you've been talking all day, you're talking all week? Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you want to discuss?
So I had a big interesting aha moment, which I'll share with you. I was talking with a bank on Monday in Singapore, and the head of digital assets was talking about something. He said, one of the big problems that one of the big problems we're going to have over the next few years is that historically inside the bank, every type of asset has had its own unique tech stack. So the stock market, stocks have the stock market, and we have unique interfaces to the stock market and unique infrastructure. Bonds have the bond market. Futures have the futures market. Cash has like the payment system like Swift. He said, one of the things that's going to kind of blow up a lot of our org model is everything works on chain. We're going to have one tech stack in the future for all of these interactions, stocks, bonds, futures, digital assets, stable coins. It's all going in a single infrastructure. And that's going to be extremely disruptive to the internal operating models for most financial institutions.
Awesome. That's really cool. I'm so sorry. This is a really cool conversation. I have questions flying up here. Do you have time for one more?
I do.
I want to know, you are getting commissioned or asked by enterprises to help them out with things that on the public side, we are exposed to narratives like, as a PR agency, our clients reflect the market in disruptive tech, right? So we have RWA clients, we have AI clients, we have all the next kind of wave of the narratives that are about to hit the market are kind of reflected in our client base. I assume it must be the same thing on your side in terms of the questions that you're dealing with and the help that you're bringing certain enterprises. What is one thing that you're starting to see that maybe the public doesn't see yet in terms of the interest and the questions that are being asked for you guys to help solve a solution or adopt something that's coming in the next, I don't know, year and a half that the public isn't seeing right now, but will see soon?
I actually think it's the reverse. So one of the other reflections I had on 10 years at EY is that we could see this tsunami of crypto and stablecoin adoption long before most enterprises could. Consumers are much more tech savvy. They are much faster to adopt technology. They move much more quickly than large enterprises. And so what was very interesting for us is like, we would look at stablecoin adoption, crypto adoption, and I'd be like, this is going to be huge. I'm running around thinking, this is going to be huge. And all of these EY partners who serve traditional financial institutions are like, no, it's not. We're not seeing any demand. Nobody at our client is asking about this. And I actually think if you want to know where the future of finance is, or any of these other things, you need to look at what consumers are doing. And a good example from like AI right now is OpenClaw. There is no, like, if you try to install OpenClaw on your enterprise laptop, IT will shut you down. And you will be in a world of hurt, right? They'll be like, that was a security risk. Consumers are out there on their home laptops. They're buying Mac minis. They're giving these things the keys to the kingdom. Consumers are stupidly comfortable with risk. Like, I'm not going to say it's a wise thing to do, but I got OpenClaw running on a Mac mini at home. I did not give it my private keys. I have not given it a wallet, but it's a real thing. And consumers are just, they're taking risk in ways that enterprises are not. And so if you want to see what enterprises will be doing in 10 years, look at what consumers are doing today.
I love that. Amazing.
I always tell my enterprise clients, they're like, what's the next big thing? And I'm like, the next big thing is already here. Someone in your company is doing it against policy.
I love that. I love that. I think that applies for us as well. I'm sure. That's awesome. Fantastic. Paul, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Amazing. Good to be part of this.